can pick her up. That's not the right angle at all. I'm usually much better at intros, I promise. This is Janae, and welcome to Gaywatch, where we watch and read gay things. First and foremost, this is a gift from a lovely friend of mine named Janae Henning. She has been in the chat more than once. She is a delight. We have worked on things together. We have talked about Devil Judge for really longer than is probably healthy. And she sent me this all the way from South Africa. It says Thirstier Than Mo Run. And it has both, I mean, I can't exactly rotate it at the moment because, like, it's full of tea. But there's, a husky and a cat with tails in a heart on the back. And that's super fucking cute. She said it was a very silly mug that brought her a lot of joy. And she sent it to me, just to send it to me. And that was very, very nice of her. Thank you so much, Janae. So I thought, what better time to have a little cameo from the Janae mug than now, when we are beginning Erha once again. It's volume 6. In volume 5, they got together and everything was beautiful and wonderful. So judging by the loveliness of the volume 6 cover, it's gonna stay that way. I'm sure. We're not headed for a ravine in any sense at all. I'm very calm about it. I will have to ask your forgiveness, though, because I was supposed to sit down and talk about. I was supposed to sit down and refresh my memory on Erha details, names, pronunciations, all of that stuff, sort of a previously on Erha type of situation. Did that happen? No, because I realized that I had only started, but not finished, the public Discord that I had promised you all, as a place to theorize and be suspicious of Shime in between streams. And that place now exists, and I had to finish that in a mad, panicked rush in order to have that for you guys. You should be able to see the invite link in the description to this stream right now, and it should be up indefinitely. And it should just be there from now on. It is obviously a very, very new server. It's a baby server. So be gentle, but then also leave plenty of suggestions. There is a suggestion box just for that occasion. There's a place for new readers. There's a place for rereaders. There's an entire channel just for theorizing because we're all suspicious of Shime. So that is there. That exists. I hope you guys enjoy it in between. I will certainly be yelling about theories in between streams because we're all suspicious of Shime. Wasn't there one other thing? I feel like there was one other thing. We usually read about 40 to 50 pages. We read for a couple hours. We take a break around halfway through where you get to go back to the Gaywatch break room that you were just in before the stream began. There are trigger warnings for this series down in the description box. And if you have ever needed trigger warnings before, you probably need them now. So please go check those out before, we get into it. If you're randomly dropping into volume 6 for the first time, which is a wild thing to do. But if you are, hello. Now, I suppose without further ado, we can start reading or whatever. But the asking for forgiveness about the not being able to sit down and refresh my memory thing, I'm hyperverbal today, have you noticed? Is that I might therefore be drawing a blank on some details, some plot moments, etc. It'll come back to me. It will, but if you're suddenly asking yourself, has this bitch read the first 5 volumes? That is why. I usually try to allot some time to refresh, and I didn't have that today. So we're just get to dive in. It is chapter 181, and it's called Shizin's Memories. Immediately following a rather romantic and incredibly satisfying confession. I'm so nervous. It's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine. The morning after the confession, Chu Wanning woke early. He didn't get up. He could see Mo run through the canopy, still asleep on a simple pallet of straw on the ground beside the bed. It was difficult to see through the gauze of the curtain. Chu Wanning hesitated a moment before reaching out to lift it, yet before he even touched the thin fabric, he curled his outstretched hand into a finger, pointing. Using that single fingertip, he parted the veil the merest crack, as if it wouldn't count as peeking were it only through that gap. The light of dawn streamed through the paper of the window. Cut into thin beams, the rosy glow gilded Mo Run's handsome features. Chu Wanning couldn't remember the last time he'd seen his sleeping face. He watched him quietly and carefully for a long time. So long he began to recall when Shu Jingyong had first brought Mo Run back to Xishong Peak. Mo Run had been a bashful youth, yet he seemed to shine with a fiery enthusiasm when he was happy. He spent his spare moments clinging to Chu Wanning, determined to become his student no matter what Chu Wanning said or how Chu Wanning tried to shake him off. He looks the gentlest. I like him the best. Mo Run's declaration back at the heaven-piercing tower had been so absurd, so unbelievable, it left Chu Wanning without any intention to take him as a disciple. In the end, he'd left Mo Weiyu hanging for 2 whole weeks. Excuse me. He looks the gentlest. I like him the best. Okay. All right. That's where we're starting. That's where we're setting the bar. Okay. It's because of his traumatic upbringing. He would attach to the one who seems and then, of course, Chu Wanning would be stunned by this because he doesn't regard himself with even a scrap of self-worth. You know? You know. In that time, he heard Mo Weiyu had asked Shu Jingyong, Madame Wang, Shi Mingjing, and Shui Ziming in turn for advice on how to become his student. Which of these Mo Run ultimately got the idiotic notion from, no one knew, but he took to lurking outside the Red Lotus Pavilion like it was Chengyi's door. Our first footnote. A well-known idiom, Chengyi's door, about 2 disciples who waited for hours in the snow at the door of Chengyi, a Song Dynasty philosopher, requesting to be taken on as his disciples. So just a very apt idiom to be using. Waiting for Chu Wanning to appear. When Chu Wanning left in the morning, he greeted him and begged to become his student. When Chu Wanning returned in the evening, he greeted him and begged once more. He continued in this vein, rain or shine, with the persistence of water wearing a hole in a rock. Each time, Chu Wanning had huffed and walked away, as if Mo Run didn't exist. He didn't like this kind of fervent pursuit. As someone who was himself indifferent, he preferred others to approach him with emotions that were equally mild. You know what's funny about this? So the whole, student has to really pester the teacher in order for the teacher to even take them on as a student. That trope, that plays out just like mostly non-romantically, actually, at least in my experience. But we've seen that trope before. This is a well-known trope. I have not only witnessed, how do I phrase this? I knew someone back in the day who had to do the same thing in order to get a particular teacher to teach her martial arts. And they also were romantically together for a number of years as a result. So if I had a nickel, all right, it's just funny to me that I have witnessed this trope play out romantically in my actual life. But the boy was keenly observant, surely a result of the environs in which he'd grown up. He only pestered Chu Wanning this way for 2 days. Sensing Chu Wanning's coolness, he stopped chasing after him to beg for his tutelage. Yet he still came to the Red Lotus Pavilion every day without fail to sweep the fallen leaves from Chu Wanning's courtyard. Once Chu Wanning emerged, he would stand with his broom and smile, scratching his head as he said, "You hung elder." No good morning at dawn, or rest well at dusk. Only the simple greeting, "You hung elder," and a smile to go with it. Chu Wanning would barely spare him a glance before striding off, but Mo Run wasn't fazed in the least. As Chu Wanning left, the rustling sounds of swept leaves carried on behind him. 10 days peacefully passed in this manner. The dawn of the 11th found Chu Wanning in unusually high spirits. It was a particularly fine morning, which contributed to his mood. Nearly a dozen lotuses had bloomed in the pavilion overnight, filling the air with their sweet fragrance. When he pushed open the doors, he saw the young Mo Run on the winding mountain path. Mo Run was sweeping the fallen leaves as he slowly made his way up the steps, head bowed in concentration. One leaf seemed stubbornly caught in a crack in the stone. He bent to pick it up, intending to toss it into the bushes. As Mo Run glanced up, he saw Chu Wanning standing before the gate. He stared in stunned silence, then his face split into a grin. Arms bare beneath rolled-up sleeves and that leaf still in his hand, he waved at Chu Wanning. "You hung elder." His voice was clear and sweet as fruit from the vine. Though it wasn't loud, it seemed to echo between the mountain peaks. A pristine expanse of clouds drifted on, and sunlight poured past the boughs of the trees. A breeze sang through the bamboo forest. Chu Wanning stood for a moment, squinting into the dazzling sunshine that turned his eyes to liquid amber. In that sunlit instant, the dead leaf in the young man's hand seemed no longer so mournful, but took on something of the bright, dazzling quality of that beaming boy. Expressionless, Chu Wanning walked down those stone steps. Mo Run had grown used to his indifference and paid it no mind. He tactfully stood aside as usual and waited for Chu Wanning to pass. Chu Wanning came down the steps, one after another, and glided past Mo Run as he did every morning. But that day he turned his head ever so slightly and glanced back at the youth. In a voice crisp as a spring and calm as a lake, he said, "My thanks." Mo Run stared for a moment. Then his eyes lit up. He waved a frantic hand. "There's no need. It's this disciple's duty." Chu Wanning paused. "I don't plan to take you on as a disciple." But his voice and expression were no longer so stern as they had been. He turned and continued on his way. Yet for some inexplicable reason, perhaps a twinge of conscience, after a few steps he found himself glancing back once more. That was how he wound up catching sight of the youth, still holding his broom, jumping for joy, wholly unbothered by his final words. Excitement was written all over his face, exuding an endless light and warmth. This rascal hadn't listened at all to Chu Wanning's second sentence. Was a mere thank you enough to make him so happy? That's not a scene break or anything. I just need a second. I just need a fucking second, all right? Welcome back to Erha, everybody. This is kind of bullshit that we signed up for. Another few days passed just like this. One morning, it happened to rain. The downpour wasn't heavy, and Chu Wanning wasn't the type to bother with an umbrella or barrier. He reckoned it would take less than half an hour to get to the platform of sin and virtue. Even if he got soaked, he could steam himself dry with a spell. When he pushed the door open, Mo Run was still there, but he wasn't sweeping today. He had put the broom aside, and instead held an oil paper umbrella as he crouched low to the ground with his back to Chu Wanning, shoulders shifting as he fiddled with something in complete concentration. His already small figure seemed even smaller when crouched. With the large, dark brown umbrella over his head, it made for a comical sight, as if he were a mushroom that had popped out of the ground after spring rain. Resisting the urge to smile, Chu Wanning walked up behind him and cleared his throat. "What are you doing?" "Ah!" Stunned, the youth turned and looked up at him. The first thing out of his mouth was, "You hung elder." But before Chu Wanning could reply, his eyes widened, and the second thing out of his mouth was, "Why don't you have an umbrella?" Mo Run stood on his tiptoes and raised his umbrella as high as it would go. His third utterance was, "Take this one." But he was too short, and stood one step below Chu Wanning. Even with great effort, his umbrella barely cleared the top of Chu Wanning's head. His grasp faltered, a gust of wind blew, and he fumbled it. The umbrella tilted, sending water streaming into Chu Wanning's collar and down his neck. Before Chu Wanning could speak, Mo Run devolved into a flurry of apologies. Sorry, sorry! Still, Chu Wanning said nothing. He could have said, the first time Mo Run spoke. He could have said, I don't need it, the second time Mo Run spoke. And he could have said, keep it for yourself, at the third. But Chu Wanning was left somewhat speechless by the fourth outburst, as Mo Run cried out his apologies. Chu Wanning's gaze was downcast. His expression might have been one of apathy or sternness. In the end, he only sighed and took the umbrella from Mo Run's hand. He held it up over the two of them, both his posture and grip precise. As he glanced at Mo Run, he paused for a moment and returned to his first question. What are you doing? Saving the earthworms. What? Chu Wanning frowned, thinking he'd misheard. Mo Run smiled, cheeks dimpling sweetly. He scratched his head, embarrassed, and stuttered, saving the earthworms? Wait, are we talking about that thing that happens in the rain where earthworms, like, come out to chill on, like, pavement and some such? And if they're left out there, they'll die? That's not what he's doing. He's not doing that. No. The more conscientious and, like, bright and innocent and helpful and sweet that he is, the more I want to cry. I know what you're doing, Meat Bun. I see it. I do. I'm offended, but I see it. Chu Wanning looked down at Mo Run's hand, which held a still dripping branch he must have picked up from the ground. Past that, on the stone steps, there was indeed a helpless little earthworm lying in a puddle, wriggling away. The worms came out of the dirt, but once the rain stops, the sun will bake them into worm cakes. Somewhat abashed, Mo Run continued. So I wanted to put them back in the grass. With a stick? Chu Wanning asked coolly. A pause. Yeah. Seeing the man's icy expression, Mo Run must have worried the Yuliang elder was judging him. It's not that I'm scared to use my hands, he hastily explained. It's just that my mom told me when I was little that you can't touch worms with your bare hands or they'll rot. Chu Wanning shook his head. That's not what I meant. He reached out and tapped a spot in midair. A delicate golden willow vine emerged from the cracks between the limestone steps and wrapped itself around the worm lying in the puddle, gently conveying it back into the grass. Eyes widening, Mo Run asked in astonishment, What was that? Tianwen. What's Tianwen? Chu Wanning shot him a glance. My weapon. Mo Run looked even more dumbstruck. Elder, why is your weapon so small? Chu Wanning finished on his behalf. Mo Run snickered. With a sweep of his sleeves, Chu Wanning said blandly, There are times when it's ferocious, of course. Really? Can I see that? It's probably best you never do. It's probably best you never do. It's probably best you never do. That is quickly becoming, it's not like he was dumb. It's probably best you never do. It's probably best. It's probably best that you don't see how vicious like Tianwen can like be, just in case it spurs you to become a maddening tyrant who destroys everything in its path, up to and including me and my body. It's probably best. It's probably best that not happen. It's probably best. Sure. Yeah. Uh-huh. At the time, Mo Run hadn't realized what Chu Wanning meant. He turned to watch as that willow vine shimmied into each crack of the stone steps, picking up those hapless worms soaking in the water and returning them to the mud. Slowly, his expression became one of admiration. You also know what this reminds me of? Oh my God, this is like consent fish. This is like getting the consent from the fish to be both of them being unbelievably kind to other creatures like this. I would even go so far to say as being kind to creatures that most other people don't care about. You know, everybody's kind to like a kitten or a bunny or like some small... Most people don't give a fuck about fish and their comfort and their, fishing them, Most people don't give a shit. So I would go out on a limb and say that it's highly deliberate that they both have a natural penchant for caring for even the smallest of creatures. All right. Okay. You see, I was supposed to be prepared for this today. And then I had to make a Discord server. So I'm not. Do you want to learn how to do this? Chu Wanning asked. Mo-Run froze for a moment, then his eyes flew wide. He was so delighted he didn't know what to say. Eventually he managed to nod over and over with his handsome little face flushed red. After morning practice tomorrow, come to the bamboo forest behind the platform of sin and virtue. I'll wait for you there. Pristine silk shoes trod over damp stone steps as Chu Wanning descended the mountain path, umbrella held aloft. Mo-Run stared dazedly at his elegant silhouette. After more than a moment, the meaning of Chu Wanning's words finally dawned on him. The red of his cheeks deepened, his eyes sparkling. Heedless of the wet ground, he fell to his knees and kowtowed, his youthful voice ringing with joyful enthusiasm. Yes, Shizin! God, was that baby's first Shizin? I think it was. Chu Wanning said nothing. He didn't acknowledge Mo-Run's words, nor did he stop him. He merely paused briefly before continuing down the steps, the raindrops skipping across the surface of the umbrella like the strumming of a harp. Only after Chu Wanning vanished into the distance did Mo-Run rise from the ground, at which point he discovered a barrier set up over his head. The translucent gold of it, flowing with patterns of 5-petaled flowers, had kept the drizzle from soaking him. Y'all, guys, it's technically page 17, but it's not, because these books always start on page what, like 11? Hang on. 11. So really, it's 6 pages. Jesus God. Shu Jingyong had been both surprised and relieved to learn of this development. Yu Hung, what made you change your mind? He had asked Chu Wanning. At the time, Chu Wanning had been sitting on the dais at the platform of Sin and Virtue, the umbrella Mo-Run had lent him still in his hand. His slender figure stroked imperceptibly over the antique wood of the handle. At last, he said, to help him save the earthworms. Most of the stream is just going to be me dead-ass staring into the camera like I'm on The Office at this rate. I'm on the gay office. Jesus. Shu Jingyong had made a noise of surprise, his panther-like eyes widening like a cat's. Save the what? Chu Wanning didn't reply. The suggestion of a smile hovered in his eyes, fixed on the umbrella's bamboo ribs. Time had passed in the blink of an eye. The youth he took in as a disciple had started pure, then wandered astray. Yet thankfully, he had still grown into a good and proper Shenjun in the end. He hadn't let Chu Wanning down. One pale fingertip poked through the gauze. Through that sliver of a gap, Chu Wanning stared at Mo-Run's sleeping face. The youth of his memories was now a strong and handsome man. His features had grown more defined, and his maturity was visible in the lines of his face. But as always, his brow furrowed as he slept. Ever since he was young, Mo-Run's lashes had scrunched low in slumber, as if weighed down by some load on his mind. Chu Wanning found it amusing. Mo Run was so young. Were his dreams so melancholy? Immersed in thought, he suddenly saw Mo Run's long lashes flutter as his eyes slowly opened. Locked in place with finger outstretched, Chu Wanning's first thought was to pull his hand back and pretend to be asleep. But Mo Run was a peculiar person. He didn't wake up with the drowsiness one might expect from a young man. Rather, he woke up practically instantly, like someone much older than his years. He seemed hypersensitive to any change in his surroundings while he slept, as if the threat of assassination was lurking always around the corner, his every step like treading on thin ice. Seven pages. Now, 7, 7, 7. Before Chu Wanning could pull back from the canopy, Mo Run's eyes landed on his questing fingertip with unerring accuracy. Chu Wanning froze. The Yuheng elder's dignity and reputation hung in the balance. In that critical instant, he was struck by a bolt of inspiration. He turned, letting his outstretched hand fall carelessly over the edge of the bed, as if he hadn't been trying to peek through the veil at all, but had simply rolled over in his sleep and stretched, sticking his hand out of the canopy as he shifted. Mo Run, unable to imagine the stern and serious Chu Wanning enacting such a farce, was completely fooled. He worried he might wake Chu Wanning, so he got up quietly, but instead of quickly stealing from the room, he took Chu Wanning's exposed wrist and carefully tucked it back under the blanket. A few moments later, Chu Wanning heard the creak of an opening door. Mo Run had left. Chu Wanning opened his eyes and gazed at the dawn light filtering into the room, losing himself in his thoughts. He had never thought he might be together with Mo Run. He'd hardly even dared imagine it. After the events of the past night, he still felt as if everything had been a dream. In his memories, Mo Run's crush on Shime Jing was so obvious. He'd spent so many years watching them from the sidelines. He knew and understood this well. He'd seen Mo Run flash a brilliant grin at Shime Jing. He'd seen Mo Run make noodles for Shime Jing. He'd seen Mo Run secretly help Shime Jing finish his missions, smug in the belief that nobody would know he'd interfered. But Chu Wanning knew it all. He had been envious, jealous, upset, and dissatisfied, and eventually he thought he'd come to terms with it. But how could acceptance come so easily? Even knowing a relationship with Mo Run was impossible, he'd still stubbornly clung to his feelings and brazenly refused to turn away. Over and over, Chu Wanning had asked himself whether this doomed course was worth it, whether such hopeless yearning was contemptible. But after countless rounds of self-examination, he had never found an answer. He himself had once looked indifferently upon those fools suffering in unrequited love, failing to comprehend why they'd persist despite the pain, holding on so tightly despite the scars left behind. He'd never understood it until the karmic flames of unanswered yearning scorched his own heart. Only then did he realize that most true and sincere passion in this world was very much the same. One could force themselves to let go, but rarely could they give up completely. It was precisely because of this that Chu Wanning, who didn't know of Mo Run's change of heart towards Shime, felt confused and hesitant. He didn't understand why Mo Run would choose to shift his attention from the beautiful Shime Jing to his own somewhat pathetic visage. Was it out of gratitude or guilt? Was Mo Run trying to devote his body to him the way a seductive demoness or flower spirit would repay a favor? For fuck's sake, surely it couldn't be because Mo Run had confessed to Shime and been rejected. Chu Wanning stared blankly. His mind buzzed with wild imaginings, all sorts of stories of spurned beauties and fickle men surging madly through his head. The more he thought, the angrier he grew, until he finally sat up in bed. Unobserved inside the cottage, he got up and stomped on the pallet Mo Run had slept on last night. That's the end of the chapter, by the way. How is this man so relatable? You wouldn't expect, or at least I wouldn't expect. I don't usually have tons in common with the stoic ones, right? I'm usually the disaster. Let's be honest. But that's just laying in bed, making yourself upset because of like romantic assumptions, coupled with absolutely no self-confidence whatsoever in being desirable in any sense of the word, until you get your ass out of bed. It's relatable. That's relatable content. Jesus. We're on page 21 for chapter 182, which is called Shizun's Little Candle Dragon. Sounds adorable. I'm in. Let me see. Okay. I'm trying to keep the break in mind. Even if he had his conjectures, Chu Wanning refused to obsess over them in the absence of facts. He was stressed enough as it was. Still, he had his reservations about these feelings that had seemingly appeared out of nowhere. Yeah, no, it's one of those things where you understand from a character's perspective, but you just want to fling yourself off a cliff because you know more than the characters do. As the refugees waited for the apocalyptic fire to die out and made ready to leave, Chu Wanning made his own preparations. He had no intention of traveling on Mo Run's sword again. Of course, this Yuhong elder, who could barely manage to fly 20 feet in the air, wasn't planning to soar across the sea on Huaisha either. While everyone else assembled on the craggy rocks near the water's edge to be helped onto Mo Run's enlarged sword, one after another, Chu Wanning pulled out his rising dragon talisman. Chu Wanning dabbed a drop of blood onto its scale, and that chatty little paper dragon sprang to life from the painting and darted into the sky. After turning several somersaults, it dove back down to circle its owner as it hollered, "Hiya, Chu Wanning, long time no see. What favor are you asking of this venerable one now?" "Give me a ride to the opposite shore." "This venerable one is the first immortal since Pangu." Ooh, second. Footnote. The first being in Chinese mythology who came out of the egg containing the universe, split yin from yang, and pushed apart the sky and earth. I thought Pangu sounded familiar. The first immortal lord since Pangu broke through the chaos, the dragon of the candle. How could I debase myself to become a beast of burden? No brides, no brides. The paper dragon, the length of a man's palm, wagged its head and whipped its tail, grumbling as everyone looked on. It was small and weak, but its voice was sonorous. Upon hearing its words, a child in the crowd burst into laughter. Chu Wanning's face was like rolling thunder. He lifted one hand and a golden flame erupted from his palm. "Then burn." Infuriated, the little dragon threw itself on the sandy beach. Huffing and puffing, it brandished its claws and glared. "Why are you always like this? Rude and unreasonable, callous and shameless. No wonder you're alone every time I see you." Oh. Oh. Mo Run turned his head as if to refute its words, but after a moment's thought he realized there were too many eyes on them, and Chu Wanning was too prideful. In the end, he said nothing and only shook his head with a smile. "Enough," Chu Wanning snapped. With a wave of his hand, he sent the ball of flame hurtling straight down toward the dragon on the ground. Of course, Chu Wanning didn't actually intend to incinerate the little creature. Though the fireball's blaze was fearsome, it merely landed on a stone next to the dragon's whiskers. The dragon wailed in terror, howling as it turned and patted its whiskies with chubby paws. "How is this venerable one's tail? How is this venerable one's whiskies? How is this venerable one's noggin? Is it still there? Is it still there?" "Not if you keep talking," said Chu Wanning through gritted teeth. A hissing golden flame rose in his hand once more. "Transform." The little dragon threw itself into its melodramatic wailing, but just as it was about to pitifully flick away non-existent tears, its beady little eyes met Chu Wanning's piercing cold gaze. It shuddered, its sobs stopping short with a comical hiccup. The dragon feebly clambered up from the ground, now resembling a paper dragon in truth. weak and boneless, whiskers and horns drooping limply. It hiccuped again and mumbled, dejected, "Just this once, never again." "As you wish." "Whatever. You said the same thing last time." "That would be," Inchuaning said. The paper dragon extended its limbs as if stretching. With a sharp cry, a beam of golden light burst from its slim body, expanding to swallow the paper dragon. The paper dragon's shrill cry became a majestic roar. Lightning crackled over that golden halo, and a wild wind rose. The waves crashed madly on the shore. Everyone closed their eyes as they lowered their heads or covered their faces with sleeves. Chuaning narrowed his eyes, his ponytail and robes whipping in the wind. When the golden light faded, the assembled villagers looked around, but the little dragon was nowhere to be found. The beach was quiet, wholly empty. "Huh? It disappeared!" a brave child exclaimed. At that moment, a colossal roar shook the heavens. Choppy waves cut through the water as dark clouds billowed on the biting wind. Everyone looked up in shock. In the lull, a majestic dragon soared from between the dense clouds. Its furious eyes were wide and round, its claws strong and sharp. Even its whiskers were as thick around as centuries-old trees. It coiled amidst the clouds, magnificent, then reared its head and dove toward the ground, wrapped in a fierce gale. "Daddy!" Terrified, the orphan boy called for his father out of habit. Mo-Run hastily scooped him up to console him. Chuaning hadn't expected to scare this child yet again and froze for a moment. Watching the massive creature streak downward, he quickly commanded, "Slow down." Ooh! Art. The colossal dragon let out a dumb grunt, then landed with a boom on the rocky shore. Slowly, it lowered its body for Chuaning to climb up. It was so large that riding it was almost like sitting on the ground. No wonder Chuaning disliked sword riding but was willing to fly on dragonback. And in an attempt to ease the atmosphere, Mo-Run cajoled the boy in his arms. "Do you want to ride the dragon of the candle with that gaga?" The boy didn't want any such thing. Burying his head in Mo-Run's shoulder, he whispered, "To tell you a secret, I don't like him." "To tell you a secret, I really do," Mo-Run answered. Back on our bullshit. "Huh?" The boy stared. Innocent as he was, his only response was another whisper. "Really?" "Shh, don't tell anyone." The boy broke into a smile, covering his mouth and nodding. "What are you two whispering about? Are we leaving or not?" Chuaning had no intention of riding with the rabble. Casting them a cool glance, he soared into the sky astride the dragon and swiftly disappeared amidst the clouds. Now is an appropriate time for the art. For the badass art. For art befitting Chuaning. Hello. That was not the right camera to bring up. There we go. Look at that. Look at that. Absolutely fucking banger art. I mean, we're used to this by now. It is 7 Seas. But still, absolutely fucking banger glorious art. It's just too beautiful. Did anyone see, I know this is well, it's not really a tangent. Did anyone see there was we got a little leak of live action footage again from Immortality? Immortality is the Erha one, yeah? Yeah, we got another bit of leaked footage from that I saw and then promptly died over. And then, you know, swore that I would see it one day. The whole thing. I have to believe that'll happen, otherwise I'll just collapse. Loaded down with passengers, Mo-Run's sword was somewhat slower. By the time they arrived at Wu Chongtown in Sichuan, it was dusk. By then, Chuaning had already landed and spoken with the major families of the town. This was the town that benefited most from Xisheng Peak's protection, so they scrambled to accommodate him. The refugees from Linyi were quickly taken into the care of several prominent clans. The boy Mo-Run had been holding turned to wave at him wistfully as he left. "See you, Savior Gaga." See you," Murun smiled. He watched them walk away, standing in the last of the sun's glow. Chuaning disliked such drawn-out farewells. After a beat, he turned to leave. Murun hastily rushed after him so they could walk back to the sect together. Against the backdrop of swaying trees and rosy sunset, they walked in silence up the stone stairs, one step at a time. Murun recalled how Chuaning had once dragged him, injured and unconscious, back to the peak despite his own depleted spiritual energy. To see Chuaning now, walking beside him as they returned together, made Murun's heart tighten. Swept up in that tide of emotions, he reached out and carefully caught Chuaning's fingertips. Chuaning froze. They'd held hands before, but Chuaning still seemed stiff and clumsy, terribly ill at ease. He strove to maintain his calm expression, to pretend he was unaffected and unbothered. Unfortunately, the man by his side was Mo Run, Mo Wei Yu, the one who knew him to his core, who knew how sensitive the mole by his ear was, and how his toes shied from the cold. She's got to stop, otherwise we're never going to get through this volume. Have mercy, Jesus! Where even am I? What is happening? Neither spoke. Observing that Chuaning didn't pull away, Mo Run finally clasped Chuaning's entire hand in his own. The path ahead was long, but he wished the journey were longer. For the chance to hold Chuaning's hand a while longer. Just a while longer. I can't collapse after every fucking sentence. I can't. We have a page quota. That's the thing. We have a page quota, roughly. We have to get through a certain amount of story on any given stream. I can't do that when every other fucking line sends me into hysterics. I need her to be more conscientious of my specific needs, please. She's inconsiderate, is what it is. Their destination was far, but he wished the journey were shorter. If it were shorter, perhaps the suffering Chuaning had borne to bring him home years ago might have been less. Just a little less. I can't. Okay. He wants the trip to be longer so that he can keep holding hands with Chuaning. He wants the trip to be shorter because that would mean that the suffering that Chuaning endured to save Mo Run would be less. He wants... I'm not all right. No. What the fucking fuck-ass page is this? 26 of volume 6 goes in the books. Not well. We're unstable over here in this corner of the internet. We really are. In this manner, they walked onto the peak, where the majestic mountain gates rose before their eyes. Suddenly, a slender silhouette in a white fox fur cloak appeared from between the rustling trees. Before the two of them could get a clear look, they heard a man's voice. "Shizun?" Startled, Chuaning yanked his hand out of Mo Run's and let his sleeve fall over it. He stopped in his tracks and raised his head. Shime came down the steps above them. All right. Snap out of it. Everybody snap out of it. Everybody lock the fuck in. He's on the page. We're paying attention. Okay? In the setting sun, his face was as luminous as the fresh petals of a lotus. A splendid sight. Even the sprawling colors of the sunset paled in comparison. He was loveliness personified. Shime appeared not to have noticed them holding hands. He only looked surprised and delighted to see them again. Thank goodness, you're finally back. Mo-run hadn't expected... I'm just revisiting that sentence again. Shime appeared not to have noticed them holding hands. He only looked surprised and delighted to see them again. Okay. Mo-run hadn't expected to run into him here. Embarrassed, he asked, Shime, are you heading down the mountain? I'm on the way to pick up some things for the sect leader. I didn't expect to meet Shizun in our run. The sect leader received Shizun's messenger Haitong a few days back, but of course he couldn't rest easy until he saw you. Mo-run and I are unharmed. How are the others from the sect? They're all fine, Shime replied. The young master was planted with a black chess piece, but not for long enough to do permanent damage, thankfully. Tenlong Elder has been overseeing his care, and today he was able to stand and walk around. Chuaning sighed. That's good. Shime smiled and looked at Mo-run. His lashes lowered gently as he dipped in a bow. I'd like to chat longer, but I'd hate to keep the Guyuea, messenger with the medicinal ingredients waiting. If you'll excuse me, Shizun, Aran, I'll see you tonight. Go on ahead, Chuaning said. We'll talk soon. Shime left in a flutter of robes, disappearing into the distance. Chuaning looked back at Mo-run. He knew Mo-run hadn't been the one to let go, that he had pulled away first, yet he still felt the inexplicable burn of fury. He shot Mo-run a cutting glare, then turned and left with a sweep of his sleeves. Mo-run could only stare in his wake. So, like, she's worked me up into such a frenzy that even the seemingly innocuous, oh, hey guys, I'm just here for about a page of stuff. No big deal. I'm just passing on through. Didn't expect to see you here. Okay, bye. Like, even that, I'm like, now she's done so much, not even related to Shime. She's done so much that I'm like, okay, but why though? Why did we take a page just to see Shime casually going from point A to point B and who just so happens to pass them along the way if it's not relevant? If it's not, there are already like other things like over the gap of several years and stuff. Like there was just that little line about Shime, right? But then it became like more relevant later. So I'm like, what is this casual passing by? There's no such thing as Shime just casually passing by unless she's doing it just to fuck with us. Unless she knows, and she does, how crazy we are, that she's like, I'm literally just going to have Shime harmlessly pass by, and it means absolutely nothing, and they're going to chew glass over it. The two arrived, one after the other, at the threshold of Loyalty Hall. When the doors opened, both were stunned speechless by the scene before them. The main hall of Xishang Peak was piled with precious metals and silks, gems and corals, magical implements and spiritual stones, spanning from the dais at the rear of the hall all the way to the entryway. Chuaning couldn't even fully open the door. A pile of sparkling spiritual stones for refining magical devices had entirely blocked the way. The gifts were one thing, but for some reason there were nearly 36 beautiful women waiting anxiously inside as well. Shu Jingyong stood in the middle of it all, desperately trying to reason with a, Huohuang pavilion, disciple garbed in pink. No, thank you, absolutely not. We can accept the rest, pavilion master, with you. We really have no need for song or dance here, thank you very much. Mo-run entered the hall behind Chuaning. As soon as he stepped in, a wave of strong perfume hit him in the face from the 36 songstresses hovering beside the doorway. Always sensitive to such fragrances, he burst into a flurry of sneezes. Shu Jingyong's head whipped around and his face instantly lit up in joy. Aran, Yuliang, you're finally back! Quick, come help me persuade this envoy here. Chuaning arched a brow. Envoy? Before Shu Jingyong could answer, the disciple turned with a toothy grin. This one is the eldest disciple of Huohuang Pavilion, here on our pavilion master's order to build an alliance with Xishang Peak. Chuaning was speechless. An alliance officer was not something they could brush off so easily. The three spent ages politely turning down the envoy's generosity until they finally managed to send him away. As Shu Jingyong watched his retreating silhouette, he heaved a gusty sigh and mopped his brow. Do you know, all kinds of sects from the upper cultivation realm have been sending messengers these past few days, and they all want to make connections with Xishang Peak. I haven't had many dealings with them. In the past, the only one willing to talk to us was Kunlun Tashui Palace. Now that they're suddenly coming in swarms, and with gifts too, I really don't know what to say. Chu Wanning frowned. What have we missed in the upper cultivation realm? The times, they sure are changing, Shu Jingyong sighed. How so? It's a whole mess. That madman Shu Shuanglin exposed so many debts and grudges with that memory scroll. Everyone knows he did it for revenge. But what difference does that make? Jiangdong Hall has splintered. Guyueya and Tashui Palace have renounced their ties and become enemies. And of course, I needn't remind you about Rufeng sect. As for Wu Bei Temple, recalling that Master Huizui was Chu Wanning's Shizun, Shu Jingyong snapped his mouth shut. But Chu Wanning seemed unbothered. Despite Wu Bei Temple being a place of purity, its previous leader involved himself in the power struggles of Rufeng sect and even devised underhanded tricks to help Nangong Lu all those years ago. Of course, its reputation is in shambles. Chu Wanning's callousness toward his own former sect bewildered both Shu Jingyong and Mo Run, who watched him quizzically. Chu Wanning pressed his lips together. After a beat of silence, he asked, "What about Nangong Se?" I don't know. We haven't heard anything from him in Monsieur, since the apocalyptic fire died down. Mo Run exclaimed softly in surprise, a look of worry on his face. Would these two kind and honorable souls be refused a gentle ending even in his second lifetime? Noting Mo Run's cryptic expression, Shu Jingyong turned. What's wrong, Renner? Mo Run couldn't possibly speak the truth, so he said, I was just thinking, Shu Shuanglin's gone missing as well, and they have deep ties with him. I'm worried they'll be implicated. Don't worry too much. The sects have sent scouts out to investigate every trace of unusual magic, Shu Jingyong said. Unless Nangong Shu buries himself forever, they'll definitely find him. Nangong Gongzhe and Monsieur might just be trapped where they are and unable to get word to us. I hope so, Mo Run said. The three exchanged what they knew about the events of the last few days. Though Shu Jingyong had received the messenger Haitong and knew Chu Wanning and the others made it to Flying Flower Isle, he didn't know much about what happened after they'd arrived. Chu Wanning answered his questions thoroughly, except when they touched upon Mo Run. Then he invariably paused and swiftly changed the subject. Shu Jingyong, for his part, would never in his wildest dreams have guessed what had passed between Chu Wanning and Mo Run. Aside from their equally good looks, the two of them were ill-matched in every way. Age, status, and personality. Even their skin tone, taste in food, or sleeping posture. They weren't alike in the slightest. Yu Heng of the night sky, the Beidou immortal, had always been the emblem of pristine purity, the symbol of cool distance. Chu Zongsho was unattached and ascetic, a man who prized his dignity above all. How could he possibly entertain a romance with his own disciple? Even the boldest and most absurd folk tales wouldn't dare posit such a plot. If any storyteller had the temerity to tell such a tale, his audience would spit their melon seed shells and dump their tea on him, then beat him under his own beechwood table. I can't help but feel like the author's being self-referential in that moment. But inexplicably, this love had flourished. In a dim, inconspicuous corner, a delicate and mysterious flower so slowly unfurled its petals. Although not yet in full bloom, its fragrance was hauntingly beautiful. We'd been in the clear for a couple of pages. Meat bun. We were fine. We were bopping along. We were getting like little updates on the state of things since it all went to shit. We were fine. Okay? We were doing well. And now we're not. Since they had returned at last to Xishang Peak, Chu Wanning intended to go to Mengpo Hall for dinner that night. But when he pushed open the doors of the Red Lotus Pavilion, he saw a figure standing on that bamboo-lined mountain path atop the bluestone steps. At the creak of the door's hinge, this person turned, his back shaded black as ink by the shadows of dusk, the last glow of sunset gilding his handsome face. Shizun, Mo-run grinned at him. Chu Wanning's feet in his pristine white shoes froze. Memory folded over itself. He seemed to see Mo-run the year he had arrived on Xisheng Peak, when he stood before Chu Wanning's door every day and watched him leave, then waited for him to return. But time never flowed backward. The Yuheng elder from the past had long since turned into the Shizun this young man had called thousands of times. His reverence now contained a tightly restrained passion and an undisguised tenderness. "What are you doing here?" "Waiting to eat dinner with you." Chu Wanning's gaze fell upon the food box in his hand. "It's been a while since we've been home. I went to eat at Mengpo Hall today. I wasn't planning to stay in the pavilion for dinner." Mo-run stared for a moment, then understood. "Shizun's mistaken," he said with a smile. "This box is empty. I just brought Shuimeng dinner. He doesn't have much of an appetite, so I borrowed a small stove and made him a bowl of noodles." Chu Wanning looked back at him with some surprise. As long as he could remember, these two had never been close. Although they were cousins, they were at each other's throats the moment they were left alone together. When had this changed? "How much time you got?" Perhaps he'd missed too much in his 5 years asleep, or perhaps Mo-run and Shuimeng had merely grown up. Stop. Why is that ruining me? Jeez. Because it's about the, at least for Mo-run, it's about the emotional growing up, not so much the physical growing up. Whatever it was, without their teacher realizing, the two had warmed to each other. They were still far from embodying perfect brotherhood, but Shuimeng would still make an ugly little clay figurine of Mo-run when he was sculpting, and when Shuimeng was ill, Mo-run would still make a bowl of noodles and bring it to his bedside. Chu Wanning sighed. "How is he? When I went to look in on him earlier, he was still asleep." "He's awake now. After he ate, he wanted to take a walk outside. I barely managed to get him to lie down again. The Zhenlong chess formation is unique. Anyone made into a black chess piece needs to rest no matter how little time they were controlled." Even as Chu Wanning agreed, he felt a small bubble of doubt rise to the surface. Mo-run had spoken carelessly, but Chu Wanning had been listening. He sensed something faintly off about that straightforward statement. Mo-run seemed to know a bit too much, and speak a bit too lightly, about the Zhenlong chess formation's strengths, weaknesses, and effects. "Shizun?" Chu Wanning blinked, coming back to his senses. Mo-run was smiling. "What were you thinking about?" "Nothing much," Chu Wanning replied after a moment's hesitation. He was worrying unnecessarily. Mo-run was a Zongsha now. It wasn't strange that he should have some understanding of forbidden techniques. Changing the subject, he asked, "Where are we going?" "I don't want to go out." Oh, it's that little flicker of, that's odd. And then just, okay. "I don't either," Mo-run said, rubbing his nose. He chuckled warmly. "As long as it's with you, anywhere's good." Chu Wanning would never admit that his heartbeat quickened at those words, but he did gaze a fraction too long into those dark and shining eyes. They were bright and earnest, filled with the reflection of the setting sun and his own silhouette. Simple and clean. Jeez. As a Kingdom Hearts fan, I'm going to have that song stuck in my head for the rest of the day now. He couldn't think of any excuse to refuse those eyes, so in the end he went with Mo-run to that bustling dinner hall. Mo-run used to put food into Chu Wanning's bowl without hesitation and had even been known to reach out with a smile to wipe sauce from the corner of Chu Wanning's mouth. But now, after crossing the bridge of that final confession, they could no longer be so carefree. Under the watchful gazes of so many, even making eye contact was awkward. You know, that's actually, if you want to watch out for something, and I don't know in what context you would do this, but if you wanted to watch out for something, you're like, those people seem cozy. I wonder if anything's going on there. If there's a period of time after they've gotten cozy where they're suddenly, like, not anymore, that's when you know. That's a red flag in and of itself. Yeah. At the end of a very courteous and respectful meal, Chu Wanning rose to clear their table. Mo Run called him back. Shizun, hold on. What is it? Mo Run reached out, but his hand paused a hair's breadth from Chu Wanning's cheek. He retracted it and pointed at the corner of his own grinning mouth. You have some rice. Chu Wanning froze in place. He set down his tray and wiped the rice away with every appearance of calm. Pursing his lips, he asked quietly, Is it still there? Smiling, Mo Run said, Not anymore. Very clean. Chu Wanning picked his tray back up to leave. Annoyed and embarrassed, he also felt a faint sense of disappointment, one he wasn't ready to admit to. In the past, Mo Run had always just reached out. This sudden imposition of cordial distance unnerved him. The next few days passed in much the same way. The man who had once been so uninhibited now acted like a blushing youth. He expended every effort to treat Chu Wanning as well as possible, but never put a toe over the line. It was as though Mo Run feared startling him. Every move he made was careful. At times, Chu Wanning thought he could clearly see the blazing lust in the depths of his eyes, but that man would somehow let his lashes fall in silence as he engulfed Chu Wanning's hands in his own broad palms. When Mo Run looked up once more, the hunger in Mo Run's eyes was always hidden beneath tenderness. Such gentle handling gave Chu Wanning the vague impression of being treated like a ceramic figurine that had been shattered and slowly pieced back together. As though Mo Run was terrified a sudden move would crush Chu Wanning to pieces and grind him to dust. I don't even know. I don't even know what to do anymore. I don't know what you want from me. I don't know what to do. I don't know. We're at that point where I don't even know. It's been what? We're only just about to come up to the break point. I can words. I can speak. I read for a living. Of course, I'm professional in the way I talk about things. Chu Wanning thought this state of affairs was fine, unhurried, and calm. Ha! Knowing Mo Run. The sizzling inferno of his dreams was exciting, certainly, but he was satisfied with it remaining a dream. If it were real, he doubted he could handle it. Don't fucking tease me like that. Yet regardless of how carefully and closely they trod the steps of love, this path must eventually come to an end. One day, Chu Wanning ate his dinner as usual and took a peach as he left. Before he could take more than a few bites, someone caught his hand. Stunned, Chu Wanning looked up to see Mo Run. In a low voice laced with reproach, Chu Wanning asked, What are you doing? That's how the chapter ends. I tried to be nice. I tried to be so kind. First stream back after a break. I was like, we're going to go all the way to chapter break. Even if we go a little bit late for the break, that's fine. We'll get to a nice stopping point. I tried, okay? But no. So we're on page 37 for chapter 183, which is called Shizun, I've Quit Spicy Food. So we'll find out what the heck that means. I mean, outside of the obvious, he's quit spicy food. We'll find out what that means when we come back. I'm going to throw y'all into the Gaywatch break room for a few minutes while I grab some more tea and, get up and walk around and stuff. There was something else I wanted to mention to you guys. I remembered it earlier and now it's gone. Watch, I'm going to remember on the break. I'm willing it. I'm going to remember on the break. There was something else that I needed to tell you guys. And I was like, damn, I should have said it at the top, but I didn't. So now we're here going into the break and I cannot remember. So fingers crossed, I remember when we get back from the break. Okay? All right. I'll be back in a minute. I'll be thinking really hard while I'm gone. And, cursing Meat Bun's name and all that. All right? Back in a few minutes. I was too excited. I was simply too excited to sit down and tell you things. So now that you can hear me, there were a couple of things that I need to tell you, one of which Blue Turnips reminded me of as we were going to the break. So the reading schedule for the rest of Erha is volumes 6 and 7 now, back to back. Volumes 8 and 9 after a little bit of a break, but towards the end of the year. And then 10 and 11, I am going to wait to start reading until 11 is out. So I'm going to time when I start to read volume 10 with 11's release date so it can be the most seamless, transition possible. But we don't have a release date. At least I don't know of one of volume 11 yet, but that's how it's going to play out. That's what makes the most sense for my schedule. I am aware that apparently volume 6, 7, 8 kind of go together, but it can't really be helped. We have to, this is the best way. I was bashing my head against the wall about the scheduling nightmare, and this was the best way that I could make it work. So that is the game plan for the rest of Erha. Also, just a little fun little announcement thing. I start reacting to the Spy Realm, and I pick up Nirvana and Fire again after having a bit of a break. I pick up at episode 13. I'm doing that over on the Patreon, so those full episodes will be dropped this weekend. The Spy Realm, however, we're going to see how the Spy Realm does on YouTube. There will be a bit of a delay because editing in terms of when the Spy Realm is recorded and when I can get episodes up onto the channel, but we're going to see how it does. So the Spy Realm is indeed coming. It'll be here. Hopefully it'll work between copyright and people giving a damn. It should work. I'm terribly excited. Liv just sent 10 Gaywatch gift memberships. Liv spoils us all. She spoils us all. Thank you so much, Liv. And then what I actually remembered, the thing that I needed to remember, was telling you guys about book chats. If you are not here for Captive Prince, you may not know that these are a thing. For YouTube members and for patrons, Tuesdays and Thursdays at 2:15, we all get together to talk and have just a little fun chat, freaking out and theorizing and talking about all our favorite bits. We have little book chats now, and that started during Captive Prince, and I am carrying it over to Erha and into the foreseeable future because it's way too much damn fun. So if you would like to do that, that is available for patrons and YouTube members. The Discord, as I mentioned at the beginning of the stream, the public Discord is now freely available if you want to hang out there for book stuff in between streams and stuff. That is there for you as well. So we have new stuff kind of for everybody going in. That's what I really needed to remember to tell you about. So we are on page 37, chapter 183. Shizun, I've quit spicy food. I saw someone mention the thematic relevance of that, and I am now potentially destroyed. If it does go for you don't like spicy food, so I'm not going to have it, and also that kind of low-key parallels with how I've kind of given up Shime because you are just so much better who I should actually be with. She hasn't stopped attacking us yet, so why would she start now? There was no one else around. Mo-Run pulled Chu Wanning into a tiny alleyway behind Mengpo Hall, so narrow hardly any space remained with him, and Mo-Run squeezed into it. So, this is how you guys find out about one of my favorite tropes. I love proximity shit. I especially love it before romantic feelings have been established between the two, but I'll take it anytime, anywhere. You stick, in Heaven Official's blessing, you stick them in a coffin, I'm dying, all right? I am dead and I need my own coffin, all right? You get them right here for any reason, I've collapsed. So this specifically is an attack on my person. Chu Wanning glared at him, peach in hand. Perhaps Mo-run's long repression had finally stirred this red-blooded man to action. His chest heaved as he stared, eyes shining, at Chu Wanning. Then he reached out and pulled him into his arms. My peach. Just the fact that he's exclaiming that tickles me. Too late. The plump and juicy fruit fell from his fingers and rolled to a stop in a corner. Shizun. Mo-run's blazing breath brushed Chu Wanning's ear. Despite the torturous fervor of his words, his tone was clear. There was restraint within that scalding heat. His voice had been burnt to a crisp by the fires of lust, yet he kept himself from taking further liberties. He only held him, tight to his chest, voice a rasp. It hurts. Chu Wanning's eyes widened. What's wrong? Where does it hurt? Mo-run stared, then burst into laughter. Before Chu Wanning's hand could lift to his forehead and check his temperature, Mo-run grabbed it and brought it to his lips for a kiss. Frowning, Chu Wanning pressed him. If you're sick, go see the Tanlong elder. It's no use seeing wintertime pickles, Mo-run said in exasperation. Only a little napa cabbage will do. Finally, Chu Wanning realized what was going on. He snapped. Who are you calling a cabbage? Lines of dialogue. Also, why are we not holding hands? We need to be holding hands. I haven't quite figured out how to hold hands in the new setup, which actually, I don't think you guys have seen. This is a new setup. A lot of stuff has happened. This is the new setup. I haven't figured out how to hold hands yet in the new setup because there's no like convenient place. So my hand's just going to go here, but we should be holding hands. Just so you know. Sorry. Mo-run grinned. Pausing, he turned those bright black eyes on Chu Wanning. But Shizun, I've missed you so much. Cradled like this, gazing into those eyes, the fury of being named a little napa cabbage had no ready outlet. It could only express itself as a flush at the tips of his ears. After a long beat, Chu Wanning pointed out, We just ate dinner together. That doesn't count. A pause. Shizun, I just want to spend more time with you. Every time you finish your meal, you walk away into the crowd. I can't even touch you. There was a faint note of hurt in his voice. Stay with me a little longer. Don't go. Flustered. Chu Wanning's cheeks burned hotter the longer Mo-run spoke. Mo-run's scent was so distinct, so masculine, so overwhelming. In that tight embrace, Chu Wanning couldn't muster a single word. Shizun, Mo-run murmured. Let me hold you a little while longer. A while longer. And do what? Is my question. But then again, I'm shameless. Their paths did not naturally cross often on Xisheng Peak. Visits from the other great sects grew ever more frequent, and Shu Jingyong often pulled Chu Wanning aside to discuss strategy, further cutting into their time together. Even in the hard-won moments when they could sit close and eat, there was still the bustling crowd around them, the fear that a sharp-eyed disciple would notice something if they slipped. They had barely gotten a chance to hold hands since the confession. Mo-run had endured this state of things for too long. It was little wonder he could bear it no longer. As night descended, the crowds leaving Mengpo Hall became denser. A group of giggling female cultivators walked past the alleyway and ran across some of the Xuanji elders' firelight mice. Those little mice with tiny dots of spiritual fire on their tails squeaked as they skittered every which way, sending the whole group into gales of laughter. Chu Wanning grew uneasy amidst the noise and gave Mo-run a push. Let's go. Just a bit longer. People will be coming soon. Go. Despite everything, Chu Wanning was still an ascetic cultivator. Unless some great liberties were taken, he wouldn't succumb even if flustered. Mo-run sighed and released him. Chu Wanning stepped out of the dimness of the narrow alley, then turned back to look at him. What are you still doing here? What are you still doing in there? I'm too fucking beside myself. I can no longer read. Mo-run cleared his throat, somewhat abashed. Shizun, you go on ahead. I'll wait here for a minute. This puzzled Chuaning, but his next words were forestalled by the flush on Mo-run's handsome golden face. His dark eyes were glittering, like stars twinkling nervously in the night sky. Understanding dawned, and Chuaning reflexively glanced downward. As his gaze landed upon a certain area, his ears rang, and his cheeks went scarlet as if stung by a scorpion. You're really... He couldn't seem to finish the sentence. This poor virgin. This poor virgin. With a flick of his sleeves, he turned and left in a huff, metaphorical smoke pouring out of his ears. It's simply too funny. It's so funny that I'm not laughing. That's how funny it is. Not Henry with the reference. I see you are everywhere in proportion. A dozen days thus slipped by evasively. Even if this wolf named Mo-run had been made gentle, the bloodthirstiness in his bones thickened with the passage of time, among other things, like the looming sense of an oncoming storm. Every day during the morning practice and the evening greeting, he stared up at where the Yuheng elder stood on the high platform, eyes filled with an undisguised hunger that grew more rapacious by the day. When someone was so deeply infatuated, even if they concentrated every speck of their energy on hiding their love, it would prove impossible. At such times, when Shuimong inadvertently caught sight of Mo-run's eyes, he jumped in surprise. He looked at Mo-run, then at Chuaning. The naive little phoenix couldn't begin to imagine the reality of what had happened, and so grew more and more confused. What the emotion flashing in Mo-run's eyes was, he had no idea. He only knew that he felt discomfited. Yet he couldn't say how or why. One day while they were alone during morning practice, Shuimong caught Mo-run's attention. He lowered his voice and said, "Hey, I have a question." "What is it?" "Is Shizun sick?" Mo-run started. "Why do you ask? Is something wrong with Shizun? Why don't I know about it?" "You don't?" Shuimong rubbed his chin. "Weird. Why are you looking at him like that then? Always with that same concerned look on your face." At Shuimong's description, Mo-run finally understood. Clearing his throat, he lowered his lashes and said, "What are you talking about? Don't jinx Shizun." "I wasn't." After a pause, Shuimong continued in a mumble, "Then why are you always staring at him?" I'm not blind." "Yes, you are." "I'm blind? Then you're a dog." Well, I mean, inadvertently. Hearing these two grown men break into squabbling, Chuaning cast his cool gaze down from the platform. Shuimong and Mo-run clamped their lips shut. Lowering their heads, they went back to transcribing the herbal medicine scrolls in their hands, still elbowing each other under the table. They're such brothers. They're so bro-coded. After shoving back and forth, Mo-run pulled his hand away without warning. Shuimong had been exerting too much force. At the sudden loss of resistance, he fell right on top of Mo-run with an audible smack. Boys. Mo-run burst into laughter, slapping his thigh. Heedless of their surroundings, Shuimong roared, "Are you serious? You tricked me!" "Mo-wei-yu, Shui Ziming." Vexed, Chuaning looked up, phoenix eyes narrow and brow furrowed, to see his disciples once again embarrassing him. "If you're going to fight, do it outside. Don't disrupt everyone else." "Yes, Shizun." Mo-run instantly sat up straight. Shuimong also reluctantly shut his mouth, but his feathers were ruffled. Humiliated by his earlier tumble, he pondered a moment, then tore off a small piece of paper, wrote a few large words on it, crumpled it into a ball, and threw it onto Mo-run's desk. Unfortunately, it flew too far. A fair and slender hand plucked the wad of paper from where it had landed on the open pages of his book. Perplexed, Shime unfolded it and glanced at its contents. What? 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 Shut up. Shut the fuck up right now. Okay, the next part is the actual note. I thought it was going to be Chuaning, obviously. I thought he was going to pick it up and we would have a fun, oh my god, Chuaning. I thought we were going to have that whole moment. But of course Shime is there. I'm so... Here's what the note said. You were staring. What are you planning? Are you trying to get Shizun to teach you his personal meditation techniques? And that's it. That's it. That's it. That's it. But still, just 1 second. Beneath that was a drawing of a dog crossed out in heavy strokes of ink. Shime was left truly speechless. Shime was left truly speechless. Gonna be a conspiracist here for a second. So, like, if you truly didn't know, or only suspected but didn't know, and you were staring, and you can pull some context from that. Because you saw who passed it to who. And with the second line, you can also obviously tell who they're talking about. So from that note, you can glean that Mo-run was staring at Chuaning. This is a man, Shime, this is a man who was on the receiving end of Mo-run's fancy for a very long time. He would know, right? He would be able to tell. And I feel like all he would need would be, as I drop my pen, all he would need would be just the tiniest inclination. Just give him a reason to suspect. And if I'm correct, and Shime is in love with Chuaning, then this is bad. If Shime is kind of the bitch that a lot of people seem to think he is, including myself, then this is like bad. This is very bad. I have no idea where I left. Where in the entire hell? Okay, there we are. When the disciples had dispersed after morning practice, Shu Jingyong sought out Chu Wanning with the most recent news from Lin Yi. The apocalyptic fire had left the land uninhabitable for at least the next 5 years. The refugees they had brought from the upper cultivation realm couldn't return. They needed to be settled in villages within Xisheng Peak's jurisdiction. I've already started making arrangements for the people I brought back in Wu Chongtown, Fenghe Town, and Baishui Village, said Shu Jingyong. For those who came with you and our run, Wu Chongtown doesn't have room for them all. Why don't we bring half to Yuliang Village? They need more young'uns after all. Yuliang Village will be suitable, said Chu Wanning. Shu Jingyong nodded. Yuliang isn't too far, but you guys should head over sooner rather than later. There are quite a few to settle. Meng Er isn't good with domestic affairs like these. I'll send Shime with you. He'll be able to help. After a moment's hesitation, Chu Wanning said, okay. Chu Wanning and Mo-run were more or less old friends to the inhabitants of Yuliang Village. The village head had received Shu Jingyong's missive 2 days ago, and was up at the village entrance, bright and early, to await the 3 Shenjun from Xisheng Peak. Miss Ling Er was there as well. It'd been a while since they'd last met, and she'd grown prettier in the interim. The instant she caught sight of Mo-run, she hurried up to greet him. Mo-run smiled, somewhat surprised. Miss, you didn't go to the upper cultivation realm? No, and thank goodness I didn't. If I'd gone to Lin Yi, I might have lost my life as well. Ling Er laid a hand over her full bosom in apprehension. I'll stay right here in the lower cultivation realm. The village has been getting better and better these days, anyway. All of us used to hope we could move to the upper cultivation realm someday. This is the first time they're coming here. I'm not going anymore. No way. That's right, someone else chimed in to agree. Times are always changing after all. With Shui Zhenju. At Xisheng Peak, in a few decades, it's possible the people from the upper cultivation realm will all wish to come here instead. The lower cultivation realm has toiled for centuries, Shime replied gently. As they say, every lake has its shore. It can't be all suffering for us. We're due some good days. He began to unpack the herbal salve Madame Wang had sent with him. Mo Run grabbed one for a closer look. Noticing the snake emblem of Gu Yue on top, he exclaimed, "This is one of Hanlin the Sage's ointments." Jiang Zhengmen had it delivered a few days back. Jing Shi is a better gift giver than Huohuang Pavilion, Chu Wanning commented. Sichuan is rife with demons and monsters, and spiritual medicines are always in short supply. The sect leader was delighted to accept. Is that so? Mo Run mumbled. They're all medicines crafted by Hanlin the Sage to boot. It's barely exaggerating to say his remedies could bring back the dead. His voice trailed off as the second half of the sentence remained unsaid. Jingsha is so rich. Years ago, at Chuanyuan Pavilion, Chu Wanning had spent 2,500,000 gold on but a few bottles of, tapir, fragrance dew, only for sect leader Jiang to now send them an entire carriage's worth of medicine with a wave of his hand. Mo Run put the jar back in the bag without a word and sighed inwardly. Rufang's sect had fallen, but Gu Yue was next in line to fill their shoes. Xisheng Peak wasn't even under consideration. It would likely be a few more centuries before the lower cultivation realm could rise to such heights. Don't do that now. In the words of Toby from West Wing, don't tempt the wrath of whatever from high atop the thing. Don't be doing that. Even for a supposedly good thing. By dusk, after a busy day, room and board for the Lingyi refugees were finally in good order, and the rooms had been cleaned and tidied for their new occupants. The trio from Xisheng Peak prepared to depart. The village chief, however, insisted they stay for dinner, an invitation they couldn't possibly refuse under the circumstances. They followed him politely to the ancestral hall of Yuliang village. The hall was the site of all important events in the village, weddings and funerals, as well as New Year's Eve dinner and the performances during the Lantern Festival, were held here or in the large courtyard outside. Today, the villagers had set up more than 30 feast tables and made elaborate dinner preparations to welcome the villagers from the upper cultivation realm. The village chief even recalled Chu Wanning's sensitivity to spice and specifically arranged a table full of lighter dishes for the Yuheng elder and any Lingyi residents with similar tastes. We love a good host. Mo Run and Chu Wanning had saved the lives of everyone at the table. But although the Lingyi commoners had become familiar with this ice-cold cultivator on Flying Flower Isle, that didn't mean they were comfortable sitting down to dinner with him. Etiquette demanded they stay in their assigned seats, making for a tremendously awkward meal. While laughter and wine flowed at the other tables, everyone at theirs kept their heads down, chopsticks moving in silence. Mo Run was a skilled cook and had gone to the kitchen to lend a hand. He didn't join the diners at the tables until the last dish was brought out, his honey-gold face gleaming with sweat from the cook fires. With his shining eyes and regally sloped nose, his handsomeness made him conspicuous amidst the crowd, at least to one person. That was me, that wasn't the book. It sounded like an add-on, but it wasn't. Soup buns, called the cook, hefting her platter stacked high with bamboo steamers. 1 for every table, 1 for every table, 12 buns in each, 6 with pork and shepherd's purse filling, and 6 with pork and mushroom. Eat 'em while they're hot. Grinning, Mo Run helped her pass out steamers to each table. Thank you, Mo Shenjun. Thank you, Shenjun. The children were more familiar with Mo Run, piped up with, Thank you, Wei Gaga. Ling Er's eyes followed his figure, unable to look away. Even if she knew he didn't like her and never would, she couldn't help watching him hungrily. Looking was free of charge. Thank you, Mo Shenjun, she cooed when the steamer arrived at her table, syllables soft between vermilion lips. Mo Run beamed at her without any hint of flirtation in his gaze. His frank regard conversely embarrassed the girl, and she swiftly cast her eyes downward. 2 tables remained, Chu Waning's and Shime's. Due to their differing tastes, they hadn't sat together. Mo Run brought a steamer to Chu Waning's table first. Chu Waning frowned as he received it. Stop running around. The food's getting cold. When Mo Run arrived at Shime's table, Shime smiled. Ron is so skilled. Thank you. Not at all. I was only helping the cook. Duty done, Mo Run turned from the table. Shime thought he was going to get himself a bowl, so he made space for Mo Run on the bench. Why don't you sit here? He called to Mo Run. I asked for an extra bowl earlier. You don't need to grab another. Mo Run stared at him for a moment, then smiled and scratched his head. I'm going to sit with Shizun. Shime blinked. When did you stop eating spicy food? That's the table for mild food only. I quit. Shime fell silent, pupils shadowed, then suddenly smiled. I've heard of quitting alcohol or smoking, but never spice. To be honest, I can't really call it quitting. After not eating it for a while, I just don't have the taste for it anymore. Mo Run hurried away toward the kitchen with a smile and a hasty wave. I'm off to grab a bowl. You'd better stay there and eat. The soup buns are getting cold. Even if he doesn't realize what he just said, and that was just supposed to be a little metaphor for us, which I don't think he realized what he said. I really don't. I mean, it's not like he was dumb. I don't think he necessarily meant it as like a burn, because like, why? It's also just not like, why would he do that? He was not prompted to do that in the slightest. So I think that was just for us. However, I'm still dead. I'm still collapsed. Oh, wow. After not eating it for a while, I just don't have the taste for it anymore. You know, that bad enough. To be honest, I can't really call it quitting because he never had it. So what is there to quit? Savage. Fucking savage. And he doesn't even know that he's being savage. I don't think. It's like, yes, Liv, the unintentional burn is wild. I think that was just for us. Oh my god. So, we don't have time to get into the next chapter. We only had 181 through 183 on the docket for today, as it were. But we still have like a couple of minutes. Oh my god, my face hurts. I'm having too much fun. All right. But we are on page 47 for chapter 184, which is called Shizun, I Made You Wait So Long. What does that mean? What does that mean? Because that's the danger now, right? We've seen the romance happen, but poor Mo Run can only, you know, withhold for so long. It's been a ticking time bomb from the moment that Mo Run found out that Chu Aning was down bad for him too. The moment, it's just been a ticking clock. We're just waiting. Me, Mo Run, y'all, we're waiting for it to happen. So something like Shizun, I made you wait so long, feels like it has some kind of screwed up context. Because really it should be Chu Aning saying that. But Chu Aning wouldn't really say that. At least not in that phrasing. So, I can see it. I don't know. And there aren't supposed to be any spoilers in the chat, so I can actually like freely look at them. I don't know. But we're on high alert for Thursday. Oh my god. What a banger couple few chapters, though. She really didn't let up. I think we had a page of getting caught up with the state of the world. But other than that, it was just an onslaught. And like, maybe it's because we're coming off of a break and I'm just no longer like used to reading Erha. And it's just always like this. And I need to get reacclimated. But geez, it feels like she just beat the shit out of me for 2 hours. Oh, wow. Yes, Anna. Welcome back to Erha, everyone. Welcome back. It kind of feels like we never left, to be honest. But this might be a me thing. So during the break, it felt like Erha, what was that? I don't know her. I've never read her. It's been 10 million years since I've touched or thought about Erha. And then now today it's back. I'm like, we never left. What do you mean? I just finished volume 5 like last week and we're just diving directly into Erha. Made especially weird because the Captive Prince reading that we did in the interim went so well and was like so incredible to do and experience, and it was so cherished by myself that it both feels like no time has passed for Erha, but then also I've had like 10 other lives since then. Tuxedo cat. Erha is back. Brittany is flailing. I'm being yelled at. All is right in the world. Yes. Yes. We have truly returned and really gotten back up to speed very quickly. Page 2, if I remember correctly. Yeah, Rumi said you have no idea how much I have yearned for the Erha stream to start, and now I'm here. I don't know what to do. Same. I've been staring at the camera and sort of gesticulating wildly because I can't. On one hand, I've been reacclimated. On the other hand, my brains have been blown out and I need a couple of days to recover, to really sink back into. This is Erha that we're reading and fully expecting it to just go to absolute utter shit at any moment because I don't trust this cover. Who would trust this cover? I don't. Not with that looming whatever it is in the background. I don't trust it. Man, relatable. Love Bunnies, who was like, I will go crazy for another 2 days now. I kind of miss binging all your streams now. It is so hard to wait. Welcome to my life. I am a binge watcher. I don't do none of this watch an episode at a time thing. The only time I have to do that is for Gaywatch, which is my life. So every time I watch something new now or read something new, it's piecemeal. And on one hand, I love it. But on the other hand, my ADHD need to just consume. I have chewed through so many enclosures. I really cannot stress this enough. So that's deeply relatable. That is my daily fucking life. Anna, Pseudo, the artist, is so unhinged with their Erha covers. I love it. I've glanced at when I say I've seen. Because I think the cover for volume 10 was dropped like super recently. Because I was trying to hammer down release dates, right? And so I saw the new cover, and obviously it's stunning, but I very deliberately averted my eyes so that I couldn't like soak anything in for any kind of spoilery reasons, because I will just go nuts at this point. Because all of the theories and the what the fuck is going on-ness, if you put anything in front of my eyes, I will just dissect it for any possible information. So I've glimpsed it, and it's stunning as per usual. Very sick and twisted of this artist to do what they have done with Erha. It's disgusting what they've been able to do. Which other Blue Turnip says that Pseudo's covers are genuinely the best Seven Seas covers? Which other series have they done? I would love to know, come to think of it. Who has done what covers, because they're simply so beautiful. Also, thank you for giving me a name to yell at, a name to curse when it comes to covers. I now know to curse Pseudo's name, much in the way that I curse, you know, directors, cinematographers, writers, in Interview with the Vampires case, costume designers. Oh, also Nirvana and Fire's case. I also curse that costume designer. Oh, they did you. Alrighty. Oh, but not just you. They also do a few others. That's good to know. Please, yes, at me on Discord with the list. I would love to know, because it's just simply exceptional. And truly, I'd love to know, like, all the artists' names. I want to know who did Modao Zushi. I want to know who did Heaven Official's Blessing, because they're just all fucking stunning. I have got to know. Thousand Autumns. I must know. What was on the back? Hang on. Oh, oh, wait. Can I don't suppose I can. You guys usually tell me when I can look at, like, the art that's in the back interior cover. And those have been spoilery before. So I was just about to casually open that. But I won't now. I'm just going to put that down and back carefully away until you guys tell me to. I'm really glad I remembered that, because I was straight up about to open that and comment on it. So, don't look yet. See? I'm very happy at myself right now. It is now 5:01. It is time to go. If you would like to have an actual chat once I can, you know, get my head around things. If you would like to sit down and chat with me about what we have read today or Erha, there are book chats. In case you weren't here at the midpoint, there are book chats for YouTube members and patrons Tuesdays and Thursdays at 2:15 p.m. just before the actual reading streams, where we get to talk about what we read from the previous stream. So on Thursday, we will be talking about the first 3 chapters of Volume 6. And also, because it'll be the first Erha book chat in general, we're also just going to scream about kind of all of it, right? So we'll be catching up a little bit. So it'll be just a big screamy, flaily. It's a whole lot of fun, by the way. That's one of the best decisions I've made for this channel in a hot second, I feel, the book chats. So if you would like to chat with me on Thursday before the reading stream, please do join. And I will see you guys in a couple of days to see what the heck the chapter title is about. And in the meantime, please take care of yourselves. Please have a lovely week. Please keep continuing to be absolutely fucking beautiful. Please enjoy the public Discord and go and theorize. I will be clocking the theories. Even if I mostly lurk, I'll be clocking them, because I could not be more conspiracy theorist about Shime. Please enjoy the public Discord. And I will see you guys very, very soon. Okay? Bye.